Welcome to Give Theory a Chance. This conversation with Dr. Daniel Chambliss took place during a virtual visit with my Sociological Life Lessons interdisciplinary colloquium at SUNY Brockport. Okay, we have a recording started. So today we are joined by Dr. Daniel Chambliss. Dan is the inaugural holder of the Eugene M. Tobin Distinguished Professorship at Hamilton College and has been recognized widely for his teaching. Dan has published books on a variety of topics, including an award-winning book on ethics, bureaucracy, and medicine, and another award-winning book on the experience of college students, which means every time you write a book, I guess you win an award. That's your trend right now. Dan is also the author of the 1989 article, The Mundanity of Excellence, an ethnographic report on the stratification and Olympic swimmers, which, again, like I was saying before, if you take Intro to Sociology with me, sometimes if you take Sport and Society, this is an article that I always assign. So how about we start by thanking Dan for being our first guest and joining in the Sociological Life Lessons seminar. So let's give a little round of applause and we'll get into it.
Thank you.
So as a way to get going, could you introduce us to one of the topics that you researched and just talk a little bit about why that was a topic that fascinated you?
Well, the Olympic swimming stuff is what I was figuring I'd talk about.
Yep, perfect.
Many years ago, when I was in high school, I was into competitive swimming in a big way. Like I just loved doing it. And I worked at it real hard. And I became what I would call sort of, modestly successful. So I was like in high school, I got a lot of credit for it. But I never reached the level that I wanted to. I was never going to be a national class competitor. And it was a mystery to me why. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't better than I was. And so that was always a curiosity because I worked much harder than a lot of people I knew who were better than I was. And that bothered me. So go forward 10 years or so. And I had gotten a PhD and I was poking around looking for another research topic from what I'd been doing. And this was back in the early 1980s. Okay, so we're talking, 45 years ago or something. And the Olympics were going to be in Los Angeles in 1984. And because I had this fascination with swimming, competitive swimming, I thought maybe I could study people who are training for the 84 Olympics. Now, side note, at the same time I had begun coaching, so I was teaching, I was a college professor, but I was also coaching an age group team in our region. And we were terrible. I mean, we were authentically terrible. And I was a lousy coach. And that bothered me a lot, too. So I wanted to learn how I could be better as well. So long story short, there were several steps to this, but I wound up in Southern California working with a team out there called the Mission Viejo Nadadors, who at the time were by far the dominant team in the sport, worldwide. And they wound up putting 7 kids on the Olympic team that year. And I lived with a couple of the coaches and I traveled with the team for about a year and a half, all their meets and practices and things like that. And I interviewed probably 80 to 90 to 100 different people, formally, and then spent a lot of time with people just hanging out with them and stuff as well. Anyway, the point is I got to know people at that level of the sport. While at the same time back home, I was coaching this team, and we were getting much better very quickly, okay, to where I ended up with people, making the junior national team and stuff. So that was a fabulous experience in my life, is learning how people become really, really good at something. And it kind of upended my notions about a lot of things. For instance,
Wait, so sorry to interrupt. I'm curious because
please interrupt anywhere you want.
Okay, so we have a bunch of students who are either in the midst of working on their senior or thesis projects and students who are thinking about topics. How did you know that was a topic worth spending? You spent a lot of time on this thing. You were traveling around the country learning about it. How did you know it was worth it?
Because I loved doing it. I had never there was nothing in my life that had ever been as compelling as competitive swimming. And I'm a PhD sociologist, like I'm a pretty serious academic, but even academic work never had the real powerful emotional appeal to me that sports did. And I wanted to be good at it. And I wanted to know how you got to be good at it. And that was really it.
So it wasn't
And my boss encouraged me
okay. That's what I was going to ask.
and,
So you did get that
and
kind of
said,
external support also.
you should go with that. Well, yeah, because in academics think studying sports is silly. A lot, I mean, college professors, it's not a high prestige thing to study. But I thought, well, what the hey, I want to learn about this. Let's go see if I can learn something.
Cool. And I'll open up if anyone else wants to interrupt also. I should not be the only one. Then I won't feel rude if you all interrupt also. Sorry, go back to what you were saying, some of the ways that it surprised you or unexpected findings.
Well, I mean, for one thing, my exposure to Olympic athletes up until then had been reading magazines about them and newspapers and watching on TV. You watch the Olympics, you go, ooh, they're, glamorous people and stuff. Turns out they're not glamorous people at all. They're pretty ordinary schmoes. Um, and that struck me right away. Like I got out to California and I would see people whose names I knew, and were big shots in the sport, and they were like teenagers, right? They were just kind of ordinary people who turned out to be incredibly good swimmers, right? But they were not special in any sense. And I found I've done a lot of work on this since. That's true in all kind of fields. You'll meet somebody who's famous, athlete or writer or actor or whatever, and you discover it's just like some guy, right? And then it turns out they're also very, very good at certain things, but it doesn't have to be their entire personality at all, and they can come off as quite ordinary. So that was a shock. Another big one was that watching people over an extended period of time, like I'm talking years and years, right? Is I realized that there are things you can do to be great. It's not about talent. And the whole notion of talent I found to be just really misleading and destructive. It's a bad way to think about sports or any sort of activity, because it turns out when you look at people who we say have talent, it turns out that really they've done stuff. I mean, they've learned how to do things in certain ways. And it may seem like it just comes natural if you're not them, if you don't see how they've lived their daily lives for the last 20 years. So it's not to say natural ability doesn't matter. I mean, physical ability. But there are so many people who have that, let's call it natural ability for something and never go anywhere. And people who don't seem to have any at all when they start out and becomes great. So who knows? So that was one thing. Yes, we have questions already here, Kyle.
So you were talking about how like there's the people that like they don't seem to have that talent, but then they like discover it. Would you say the environment was a big part of
Yeah.
discovering that talent?
Yeah. I'm not sure I'd use the word discover there, but you're exactly right. First off, environment. Let's say I was studying swimming, right? It turns out that Southern California is a really good place to be a competitive swimmer because there are lots of swimming pools, right? And they're surrounded by, they're in beautiful weather and palm trees, and you want to jump in the water, right? And everybody knows how to swim. I mean, if you grow up in an upper middle class family in California, you're going to be a pretty good swimmer. I mean, it's because everybody does it, right? If you were where I was in upstate New York, like you folks, right? Yeah, swimming doesn't look that appealing to most people. I don't know about you, but I don't like getting in the water when it's 10 degrees out. And so that sort of factor works in very quickly. You've got to have access to the facilities for whatever it is you want to do. And most importantly, I would say, you've got to have access to teachers, to great coaches in the case of a sport. And being exposed to those people is real important. Also, being around other people who want to be doing what it is you want to be good at, right? If you want to be a good student, you probably need to have friends who take school seriously, right? Otherwise, they're going to be saying, "Oh, let's go, let's go get drunk or hang out or I don't know what, whatever else people do." So, yeah, is this making sense here, Kyle? And did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So
Yeah.
the other, in terms of popular narratives about what makes people successful, especially athletes, if you
Yeah.
often go to talent, and then the other one, especially following Malcolm Gladwell, everyone just says, well, it's how many hours, how much time you put in. So what do you think
But
of that?
see, yeah. Gladwell, it's a great piece of work. I mean, he's right, sort of. Because what people leave out about that argument, this is Malcolm Gladwell, who's a fabulous writer. I don't know if the students know who this is, who popularizes a lot of social science research. Basically, he takes their findings and then explains them to the public. And he says somewhere, it's in Outliers, is the name of the book. He says, to be world class at anything, you need to work at it for 10,000 hours. Okay? That's correct. And he takes that from a research result from a guy named Anders Ericsson, who spent a lot of time studying this. And Ericsson said 10 years, but it's basically the same thing. But what Ericsson said, and Gladwell didn't emphasize enough, it's not just working for 10,000 hours. It's what he calls deliberate practice for 10,000 hours. That is, it's got to be concentrated work where you're really focused on the details. Easy example, if you want to be a great foul shooter in basketball, free throws, you can go and spend 4 hours a day throwing free throws. You're probably not going to get that much better. But if you focus on your technique every shot and you do that, in other words, you're actively working to improve for 10,000 hours, for 10 years, you're going to get a lot better. Right? So it's not just the quantity of time, Kyle.
Mhm.
That's the point. It's the quality of the work that matters.
Okay, I think we interrupted you when you were looking at the listing some of the reasons that swimmers are more or less successful. Were there
Mhm.
other ideas you were going to share?
Well, yeah. If I had it in a sentence that okay, here's a little sociological wisdom, right? Self-discipline is hard, right? Conformity is easy. Self-discipline is hard. In other words, making yourself go and practice every day is hard. But if you're in a situation where everybody around you is doing it, it's a lot easier. Like all your friends are involved in the sport, let's say, and that's just what you do every day. You get up at 4:30 in the morning and you go swim 8 miles. The people I was studying. Okay. So if you want to be, I don't know, let's say a great dancer, you should probably move to New York, New York City. If you want to be a stand-up comedian, a career I don't advise, by the way. It's hellaciously difficult, and nobody makes money doing it. But if you want to do that, you need to move to either New York or maybe Toronto. Toronto turns out to have a great stand-up comedy scene, and there are a lot of aspiring and successful comedians there. And if you hang out with those people, and work at it, you're going to get better. So, yeah, am I getting at what you're thinking there, Kyle?
Yeah, I think so. Question: with the swimmers that were successful, were they conscious about what they were doing, in that they were
Yes.
they were aware that they were embracing the kind of boring aspects of it. They were aware they were placing themselves in
Yes.
environment. Okay, so it wasn't just that they were so socialized into it. There was some
Well,
intentionality.
hard to
Yeah.
distinguish. Okay. But were they aware of it? It depends who they were. There were certainly a lot of people on the team I studied did not grow up in Southern California. What happened is they moved there when they were 13, 14, 15 years old in order to swim. They were good swimmers, great swimmers, let's say, in a regional program. I mean, this happened with people in, from Rochester, New York, let's say, which has had a pretty good history of swimmers. And they get to a certain level and realize, like, if I want to be great at this, I got to go where the great people are. And they would literally pick up and move. Sometimes the whole family would move. The team I was on had a whole boarding program where kids would come from around the country, around the world, really. I mean, there were a lot of international kids. And they would move to Southern California, stay with a family that was part of this big team. This team had 600 swimmers on it, you understand? I mean, it was a huge program. They would live there and hang out and live and with people whose goal was to make the national championships. Right, and then some of them go on to the Olympic team. So I forget where we were with that, Kyle. But
You answered my question.
yeah.
All right, another follow-up question. How did it?
I'll give you another example. One of my favorites, just real quick, like here. If you want to learn a foreign language, let's say you want to learn to speak French. You could do online courses, right? And maybe you pick up some things, and if you worked at it and had a lot of self-discipline, you'd probably get better. But better, really, you should go to France, right? And spend a few weeks in France. That by itself, literally a few weeks, you'll get noticeably better because your attitude about what it takes to be good in a language improves. But if you really want to do it, you'll live there for a year. Then your French will get better. And if you want to be great at speaking French, here's a tip. I don't care how bad you are at languages. I don't care how much you work or little you work. You can even be, frankly, kind of slow. But if you are born in France, you're going to speak French. Okay? Well, and it sounds like a flippant example, but it's not. But it's because if you are born in France, you basically have to speak the language because everybody around you, that's what they're doing. And if you want to do anything, any time of the day, you've got to speak French. And you grow up with it, you think that's just kind of what people do. All right? So by comparison, say, great musicians almost always grow up in musical families. So it's not that they necessarily have talent. It's that's just their life. That's what they do. And they don't think it's a big deal. Okay. Yes.
How did this research change your own coaching? So you returned to Central New York with all that you learned. Did you get better as a coach?
Oh, a lot better. I mean, the main thing I learned is that it's doable. Is that being a fast swimmer is very doable. There are techniques. The trick is, the hard part for me as a coach was I had to make people do stuff. And that doesn't come naturally to me. I'm a real kind of, easygoing, laid back, low key kind of guy. And I didn't like the idea of giving people orders, I guess. But what I realized was I would say to the swimmers, the kids, they were children, here's the deal. Like, I'm going to do things this way, and here are kind of the policies. And if you want to be part of this, that's great. And if you don't, God bless you. You can do other things with your life. Nobody's forcing you to be here. But if you're going to be here, you got to come to practice. You got to show up on time. And you got to pay attention when I'm saying something. I mean, it was pretty much almost that at that level. And we had a great time. We had a lot of fun, and kids got a lot better. But, I left out one thing, is there are specific techniques you can use to get better at anything. Right? So one of my favorite examples, when you're young and you learn how to draw a three-dimensional box, you draw a square and then you draw another square that's offset like this. And all of a sudden it's like, it looks like a square. I mean, it looks like a cube, right? That's an art technique. is how to make something appear three-dimensional on a two-dimensional space, like a piece of paper. Well, in swimming, there are techniques you learn, like when you push off the wall after a turn. I don't know if there are any swimmers. You need to do what they call streamline. That is, you don't just push off the wall, you go like this, right? And make yourself as skinny as you can, so to speak. And by golly, you'll go a lot farther when you push off. And you're going to beat the person next to you who doesn't do that. Well, it turns out there are an endless number of those techniques. And as a coach, all I would do is just keep teaching people new things. The kids would say, well, I'm not very good. I don't have any talent. I say, don't worry about that. Let's just get a little bit better this week. And the next week we learn something new. And the next week you learn something new. And pretty soon they're really flying. And that's the way what I'm telling you is that's the way life is. Yeah, there's a hand in the back.
So circling back to the scholarship program or the boarding school, was there a scholarship program? And if so, did this allow you to see like individuals or families move to Southern California of a lower socioeconomic status to participate in swimming?
Yeah. No, great question. Great question. This particular team had a lot of funding, okay, from a petroleum company, okay, and their deal at the time there was sports weren't professional at all the way they are now, and they could pay for the kids to go to the national championships and would pay all of their expenses. Well, that's a huge incentive. I mean, you're talking thousands of dollars, for every. And what happened is the team then started just collecting all these kids who were national class swimmers, because the team would pay their expenses to go to these meets. And that was huge. That is an enormous factor. Yeah, if you're lower socioeconomic class, the odds are heavily against you. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. It pays, it's America. It pays to be rich. You just get a lot of opportunities that other people don't get.
Do we have any other questions? I mean, this has been great. My final question was going to be, and I've not as pertinent here because you've been doing this the whole time, which is why I invited you. What lessons can be taken from the research that students in the classroom can apply to their own lives? But you've really been showing that each step along the way. So instead, I think I just want to open it up and see if there's other questions about, and it could be building on that question I was going to ask, could be building on anything Dan said. Do we have any questions? And they can be selfish questions. You can ask advice for how to get better as a writer, how to get better as a student. I mean, Dan has ideas and can share his wisdom. So does anyone have any questions at all? August.
Yes.
Yeah, so did you ever come across like a swimmer that like even though you gave them all these techniques would like just refuse to get better because they're like, I don't have the talent for this. My parents are just forcing me to be here. And like how do you handle that?
I would talk to the parents and say, don't make them come, because life is short. There are many most of the world's not going to be competitive swimmers, right? I used to do this in my classes. I would say most people are never going to study sociology. That's fine. Like there are other worthwhile things in life. I don't care. So my attitude was always, if you want to do this, I'm happy to help you, and I'll help you be as good as you can. And I'm a nice person too, and all that. But this is not I'm not talking about forcing people to do this at all. Not at all. I think it's a bad educational strategy to force people, like, especially once like you guys, once you're adults, like study what you want. But the trick is, if you find something you really like, throw yourself into it and grab a good teacher.
What would you say to the kids or the people that struggle to find motivation?
Maybe you're doing the wrong things. That is, motivation I think everybody's motivated in some way or other. The trick is finding out what that is. What turns you on, What grabs you? What are you actually interested in? Even if it sounds ridiculous and is embarrassing, in front of other people and stuff. Find something you love doing and pursue it. And that takes care of a lot of other problems. Yes.
You said that self-discipline was hard and conformity is easy. Would you say then it helped to not put yourself in positions where you have to rely on self-discipline?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, no, let me say, self-discipline's a wonderful thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if you've got it, you're way ahead of the crowd, and you should use it, right? I'm just saying that for most of us, most of the time, it's nice to have the other as well. It's nice to be around other people who are supporting what you're trying to do.
And I think that goes with your point about simple techniques that help also. One of the things I often say in intro is it's a lot harder to have self-discipline when your phone is right next to you. It's easier when it's further away, right? So something as simple as that. So why punish yourself by always having that test, and you can be proud at the end that you didn't pick it up, or you can just move it, right? So like
it's why you go to a grocery store, that checkout line, the candy bars are right there. Mm-hmm. They know what they're doing.
Good question.
Not an accident. Grocery stores are great places to study this because the way that everything is placed on the shelves throughout the store has been calculated out depending on getting you to buy the stuff they want you to buy. Yeah. So yeah, put yourself in a situation where it's going to be easy to, like, for instance, learn French. You want to learn French, go to France. You want to be a swimmer, you go to California. I don't know, whatever. Take your examples. It's a good reason to go to a good college, by the way. If you go to a lousy college, you're surrounded by people who don't care about what they're doing, right? That's the definition in a sense. The more you surround yourself with other good students, the more you're going to learn. Excuse me, another question?
Yep.
What sorts of things did you implement as a coach to help motivate the swimmers that you were coaching to buy into?
Yeah.
Discipline?
Yeah, sure. One example would be early on in my career, we decided to have a challenge meet. That is, we did some research, found out there was this big meet in Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, you guys are closer than we were to that, but that's, it was like a 10-hour drive or something to go to Cincinnati, Ohio. But there was going to be a big meet there with national class swimmers. And it had cutoff times, that you had to make to be eligible for the meet. And my assistant and I said, we'll take anybody who makes the cutoff times to that meet. And we had nobody who was anywhere near those times. But we told them it was a big deal, and there was an Olympic star who was going to be there and stuff. And I mean, that day, the kids just went nuts in the pool. They wanted to go to that meet. Now, we had to persuade the parents that this wasn't an insane idea. But, you set up targets for people that have meaningful results would be one sort of thing. A lot of it, too, we spent a lot of time, basically, Kyle, you were mentioning at the beginning of class, personal contact between the coaching staff and the swimmers. We got to know them. They knew we cared about how they were doing in school and in their lives. And, we listened to their problems and things like that, having good relationships with the people. And then everybody wants to go to the big meet. And to do that, you got to go fast. And so they start doing things. That's just an easy example. But
Do we have a final question, or is that where we? Oh, we do. We got.
The real answer to your question, though, is you got to make it fun.
We got two questions.
I have a bit of a fun one. Just swimmer to swimmer, what was your favorite stroke to race?
Well, I was good at breaststroke because I have splayed feet, so I could kick real easily. And I was terrible basically at everything else. But I got by okay. Yeah, no, I was a breaststroker.
What's your answer?
I was a butterflyer.
Oh, that's awful, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the painful one.
Oh, yeah. It's all about timing. Butterfly is all about timing.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't do it.
You had a question too. Out of the pool.
Oh yeah, out of the pool. So based on what you've been talking about, I'd assume, I'm gonna make an assumption here, that you're one of those people that believes it's never too late to start something. So with that in mind, if that is indeed what you think, maybe, what
Yeah,
would
yeah.
you
Okay.
give for those late bloomers who may have not had the time and advantages that other people have had?
Well, okay. When you say it's never too late, it probably is too late to be world class at
Yeah.
something.
I'm not talking world class, but
Yeah.
let's say
Proficient.
you were like
Proficient.
20 and wanted to start, I don't know, ballet.
Don't do that.
Well, I'm just saying. Well,
Do that. Not that one.
no, not that.
No, it's fair. It's fair. Great. If you like ballet, do it. I have a friend who's my age, who's 72, and she does ballet every day. Now she started younger, but no, you can always do it and you can get better. It is, I mean, all of the evidence is it's much harder to improve a lot the older you get because you've got all the habits. I mean, for me, going back to the swimming thing, I was a lousy freestyler and I didn't get into competitive swimming until I was 14 years old, which is pretty darn late. And by that time, I had really solidified a terrible freestyle. Like it was a life habit, and trying to change it was enormously difficult. So it's better if you start early, for sure, like speaking a language, same thing. But if you want to do something late, sure, you can do it. And the amazing part is you can get much, much better very quickly, even starting at an advanced age, if you have the right teacher. The problem, too, in something like ballet is the best teachers probably aren't going to spend their time with an adult learner. That's a problem.
Yeah.
But there are those people who do that, and it's great.
And it's harder to find a community to surround yourself with if you're starting.
Absolutely.
If you're starting ballet when
Yeah.
you're 30, you'd have to be a bunch of
Apparently it
kids.
was just a
And your friends think you're ridiculous. I'm sorry?
She was saying ballet was just a throwaway. I think we got too focused on that example.
No, but it's not a bad example. Well, another friend of mine who's a well-known sociologist, Diane Vaughn, started tap dancing in her 50s. Got pretty good.
And you have to be comfortable taking a class with other people who are not at the same age also, which is a challenge.
Right. Well, and a big problem is when the older you get, the up to a certain age. I mean, adults tend to be embarrassed about learning stuff because you look silly. Little kids don't care, right? They don't mind being bad at stuff. They're bad at everything. I mean, they don't even think of it that way. They're just like, I'm learning how to do this. Yeah, and that becomes a problem as you get older. But
it's not necessarily a question, but it's just something to add. As somebody who
Yeah.
did start ballet at a different time in their life, and I came into this class of all girls. They had all been doing ballet since they were 3 or 4, and I was
absolutely,
15.
Mm.
And
Absolutely.
it was definitely a lot harder.
yeah.
But I had
Yeah.
my own advantages too, because some people had built up different habits that they did, whereas I had a fresh slate. I had never done ballet before. I had done other kinds of dance, but I had never done
Yep.
specifically ballet. And
Yep.
I was 15, so they were still willing to help beginners, but I was definitely
Yeah.
in classes with people that had been doing ballet their whole life. So
Yes.
not to
Yes.
carry that ballet example way too far, but
This is
that
great. This is
was
wonderful.
a great coincidence
No.
that I've been through that.
Good for you. Good for you. No, it's great. It's great.
Should we final question. Who wants to be Luke, you want to end it?
Yeah, you mentioned that there's techniques to improve in a discipline. What do you do in a scenario where you're competing and both competitors seem to have learned the primary techniques and one of them's still losing?
You learn the secondary techniques. You just learn more stuff than they learn. And yeah, you're right. The primary, they'll have basically the same skill level and things like that. There are ways that's any good basketball player, spends a lot of time working on that. And you start tailoring your moves, say, to the specific other people you're playing against. So pro basketball players basically know all the other regulars in the NBA, right? And they know how they play, and they know their weak spots, and they tailor their game around that other person's weak spots to take advantage of them. Yeah, you can figure it out.
Let's call it. This was wonderful. Let's thank Dan again for joining us. I really enjoyed this. I hope
Thank
all
you.
of you did as well.
Now, this has been fun and great questions. Great questions.